Hello, and welcome to the Fiction Nonfiction Podcast from Literary Hub, where we believe that every issue in your social media feed or on the evening news has already been tackled somewhere in literature. I'm Vivi Ganeshananthan, also known as Sugi, author of the novel Brotherless Night.
And I'm Whitney Terrell, author of the novel The Good Lieutenant. We did not record during Thanksgiving break. We haven't talked in a while. So what have you been up to?
Well, I had a nice meal with friends and family, but
Is
mostly
that
over
called
things.
Thanksgiving? Is that what is that what
Well,
that meal
many
was?
many people I am connected to, and I obviously for similar reasons have of course compunctions about Thanksgiving. I
Okay.
just live in a place with a lot of thoughtful discourse about the meaning of indigeneity and yeah. Anyway, so like many people I know are like anti-Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving. We didn't call ours anything. We just ate really good food and had a lot of political
But
conversations.
it was
And
on
then
Thursday.
yes, but then I was sick for the next 4 days and time lost all shape and meaning.
Okay.
I'm just sort of recovering. So listeners, if I sound froggy, that's why. How was your long weekend?
Well, I got some very sad news this past weekend, which is that, and the whole literary community did, which is that my friend Daniel Woodrell, who's an amazing novelist, who is also a fellow Missourian, died. So honestly, I've been grieving over that.
I'm so sorry. I've heard you talk a lot about him.
Yes, and I don't know. I mean, there is this, but we did try to have Daniel on the podcast this one time and ran into technical difficulties, which I'm sure you remember. So that's a funny story that feels inappropriate to tell on the weekend of his passing, but it does make me remember him fondly and some of his personality, which I loved and enjoyed. But honestly, I've kind of been hiding out. I finished this, you know, big fundraiser that we're going to mention in the show, and it's hard to process the loss of someone you didn't expect to lose, you know. And at the same time, I do have some good news.
Good news. What's that? All I'm following this week are stories like extrajudicial killings in the Caribbean and attacks on the Somali community here in the Twin Cities from Trump, from Representative Tom Emmer. Tell me good news.
Okay, so on the 20th of November, we had the Writers for Readers benefit dinner here in Kansas City, which you've been at. We raised a bunch of money to teach free writing classes to people all over the city. And we announced the most recent winner of the Maya Angelou Book Award, whose name is Alison C. Rollins, the poet. And not only that, she is going to join us on the show today.
That is good news. Born and raised in St. Louis, Allison published her debut poetry collection, Library of Small Catastrophes, which was a 2020 Hurston Wright Foundation Legacy Award nominee. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in American Poetry Review, Black Warrior Review, Ira Review, New York Times Magazine, and elsewhere. She's the winner of a Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation, as well as a Rona Jaffe Writers Award. These days, she's an assistant professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, not too far from me. And her newest collection is Black Bell, which came out in 2024. And that's the winning book. So, Alison, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're very glad to have you. We've met on the Zoom call about the original award, and then well, you didn't see this, but we played some video from your acceptance at the Writers for Readers dinner, which is a benefit dinner that we do here in Kansas City. Um,
So, as I was just mentioning, this is the first of a few epigraphs. There's also epigraphs from Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Toni Morrison, and you're connecting the bell to so many different things. And you were mentioning that you were mentioning sonics. This is obviously not a silent book. Sound is a powerful part of a lot of the poems. There's this great poem, Phyllis Wheatley Takes Turing Test, for example. It has these sound icons in it, instructions about how to read certain lines in certain voices. Some poems refer to Stevie Wonder and Sun Ra. And I used to be in a Sun Ra tribute band. So when I saw the
Oh,
Sun Ra
This is
stuff,
a
I was
part of your history that I totally just think is a lie.
that's so
I
awesome.
just don't believe it.
it's even during the life of the podcast that
You never
this
talk
was
about
true.
Sun Ra, and then every once in a while you're just like, yeah, well, I'm in a Sun Ra tribute
I
band.
was, I was, and the pandemic killed it. It was just really
Oh.
sad.
Are you also wearing costumed performances, or was it?
It
No,
wasn't.
because she's not really in this band.
I have like a whole rose gold sequin section of my wardrobe,
Amazing.
which I don't get to wear anymore.
Wow, that's
It's
awesome.
very sad.
I
Anyway,
highly encourage bringing that back.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Yeah, I miss this very much. But so when I saw all these Sun Ra references in your work, I was really excited about that. And there's just a ton of musical ideas, musicians invoked in the book. And I wonder if you can talk about how those references connect to what you're trying to convey about time and memory in these bells.
I think in general, I view poetry as a form of musical composition. I'm presenting to the reader a composed piece that I want them to think or work through, and they're carrying in their voice, whether silently or sonically, if they read the poems aloud, a way of kind of bringing to life or enlivening the language with a musicality, with the sonics of the voice. And so I was really curious about, or I'm always thinking about music and play in that way as it relates to poetry. I think one of the goals for the book was trying to imagine poetry as three-dimensionally as possible, both aesthetically and how the poems sit on the page, but also how they live in the air. Like, I think there's a certain simpleness. Like, I write a poem, I print it out, it's on a page, it's one dimensional, it's a flat plane, but I was really trying to think about giving the poems like an architecture and body in a particular type of way, one of those being kind of aesthetically on the page in terms of play, but also sonics. And so I think I'm always building a soundscape or a constellation of kind of symphonic interventions or collaborations. And so Sun Ra for me, Afrofuturism was very important to me in this book. It's steeped in the archive and in 19th century history, but I didn't want to see that as divorced or binary from futurism or fantasy or science fiction. And so it was really important for me for this collection to kind of merge those two realms, which we often think is separate. Like 19th century can't be in conversation with Star Trek because those are two very disparate kind of ways of thinking about history or reality, etc. And so it's really important to me to meld those. And so for me, music and musicality became a way to do that. Also, kind of the visual illustrations I have in the book as well. I'm a huge Stevie Wonder fan, huge Sun Ra fan. I'm trying to think of others. There's like a whole note section in terms of like I reference a lot of albums, Outkast, Tribe Called Quest. Like there are a whole bunch, Wu-Tang Clan, like a whole bunch of kind of hip hop also references. So I'm thinking a lot about like Sonic's plays and kind of also maybe mapping a playlist alongside the poems so that they live in that kind of type of dynamicism as well.
That's interesting. Our so I should say, I mean, our Whitney's some of Whitney's students worked on this episode, and they were interested in sort of how call and response
Mhm.
appeared in your work, which I thought was really interesting, like the way that these poems are in conversation with other texts, um, and with each other. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think about call and response in so many ways in terms of the history in the Black church, in terms of an utterance that's being asked to respond to, or a collective, like everyone say, I'm okay, or we're all doing well, or turn to your neighbor and say, it's like being in dialogue in that way. I think about call and response in terms of some of my earlier points of like being in dialogue across space and time with the past. So, what it means to enter the archive and be looking for voices or looking for silences or gaps or omissions and trying to critically refabulate or trying to critically create or make a voice out of nothing or out of absences and holes. I think about call and response in terms of inviting also readers to be more engaged or implicated in their reading process. Like part of this book, there's like pages that are meant to be torn out, instructions for poems to be cut up and rearranged or engaged with. And so I really wanted to think about call and response also in terms of like what are ways to play with readership or give readers more agency to engage with the text. So I am not the authority giving the book as a Bible that's meant to be read a particular way, but that there's ways for the response of the reader to also be playful or to be just as important in my crafting or curating of the experience. And so it was really important to me to have not just the call or the person sending out the first originary signal to be important, but also that response or that readership to also have collective agency and a feeling of empowerment as they engage with the text as well.
Also, really just the one example of what you're talking about. I think I want to say it's Letter at the End of the World, where
Mhm.
kind of at the end of the poem, you sort of directly say to the reader, like, if you don't like this ending, rewrite your own,
Mhm.
which is kind of a turn that I really loved.
Yes, definitely.
You've already been talking about the architecture of the way, the way the poems look on the page and their shaping and what that means to you. So why don't have you read one of those poems that is shaped? This poem is in the shape of what I looked like an arrow to me anyway. It's called The Loophole of Retreat or The Love Below as Above. One of those outcast references, I guess, that you're mentioning. Could you just read that for us and talk about the connection between that poem's meaning, sound, and its shape?
Definitely. This is The Loophole of Retreat or The Love Below as Above for Harriet Jacobs. I see you, peeping Tom, beside yourself with rage at what I done did, hands gone idle from deprivation. I see you, uncle, with your fingers at the trap door to place crumbs of a biscuit to my mouth in the dark. Through a hole the size of a mustard seed, I affix my eye and become faith itself, become the all seeing God in female form, the grown woman grammar of Black vernacular. Congregating mice enter my sanctuary, sniffing, praying with their teeth. There go the train of my soul, dragging on the ground like a wedding gown. The gravity of a grandmother's black hole, being both bound and intergalactic. I, the wholeness of erasure, an invisible matter hiding in an attic of entrapment. Red ants eat through my legs, freedom tiptoes on acid rain. Master don't know where I be. Unbecoming, I be winded in a window gone south. Up north, I levitate on tripwire, limbs suspended in dank air, indecent ligaments, numb accomplices, desensitized, hair matted, nails gnarled. I swallow the steely dust. My alchemist lips bleed metallic, a sweet tune to the touch of a broken tongue. Hear my children singing from below. Come closer. Let mama smell you through the walls. Let mama's silence softly break. This is what it means to watch over. This is what it feels like to hold your own. So that's the poem. And as mentioned, it's in the shape of an arrow or arguably the structure of a house. And the poem is dedicated or inspired by Harriet Jacobs, who um, was being threatened in terms of her enslaver, that she would be sold away from her children or that she would not have access to her children, was making severe like sexual kind of advances upon her. And so what she did is she hid herself in her grandmother's attic space for a period of 7 years before being eventually able to get away to freedom. And so, in this particular crawl space where she could hardly stand, hardly move, she writes about there being the presence of ants, vermin. She could hear her children playing below. Outside through the walls, and her uncle would come and feed her through food through a very small hole. And so it's about that experience of self-enclosure, self-containment for 7 years. She had severe like bodily aches and pains due to this confinement, but what she was willing to do in terms of mapping her own sense of freedom or liberation and what she was willing to do as a mother for her children. And so the poem, I think, is really exploring or thinking about, and the language of loophole of retreat comes from her slave narrative, that was a quite famous text in the 19th century. The poem is kind of thinking about or meditating or thinking about shape and confinement in that way, and thinking about what it means to be suspended up above the kind of landscape of this place of enslavement and terror, and to be watching from on high, observing and witnessing your children growing up while waiting to be able to move towards your own liberation. I'm so inspired and obsessed. I have maybe like 7 or 8 different copies of the Harriet Jacobs text. It's one I absolutely adore and love teaching. It's such a beautiful piece of rhetoric and also just kind of lyric imagination and brilliance. And Harriet Jacobs is just one of my historical kind of heroes. So the poem is definitely, yeah, in conversation or tribute to her.
So there are these poems. I love this poem and that incredible story. This poem is shaped in a certain way, but there's so many other visual elements in the book as well as that you were mentioning before, geometric diagrams like the hymn of Inkscape. There's an image of spacecraft crossing the solar system, kind of space being the place, etc. And my dad is a retired pulmonologist, and you have this notated picture of the lungs, the human respiratory system. There are newspaper clippings of songs by Henry Box Brown, Escape from Slavery, Hymn of Thanksgiving. Can you talk about all of these different visual elements and how they're at play and at work in the book, how you decided what to include? Like, you've clearly done all this incredible historical research and archival work. Sometimes I know when I talk with other writers or with my students, we're sort of like, I'm in the research and I'm lost and I love all of it and I want to put all of it in, but you can't.
Sure, sure.
So how do you pick?
Um, that's an excellent question. There's a lot of things that definitely didn't make it or got left out. I love pictorial dictionaries. I fell in love with them through the work of fellow poet and librarian Jessie Randall used them first, and I saw and found the source material that she used and kind of fell in love with them. They're like visual dictionaries that have images and then they have definitions or words in relationship to the images that are numbered. And so I really found that as an interesting tool or guide for language making or meaning making or learning a language and learning kind of terminology. I also love 19th century medical texts in terms of the images and also their pairings with language or kind of definitions of the things that we're seeing. And so those kind of serve as the source text for a few of the poems. And in terms of like my thinking about repurposing that found language in a new way or imbuing it with new life alongside my kind of lyric interventions. Um, I just love also, I think as an adult, there's something that's so sad about, or why I love and kind of enjoy teaching graphic novels, which students often find surprising, is that there's something beautiful and intriguing about having pictures alongside text or written text. And I feel like as adults, we're told that that's not sophisticated or mature, but I think there's something so delightful and pleasurable about it. And so having kind of visual images sit alongside the work was really important to me for this book. And again, adds, I think, another texture or layer to the reading experience that informs it and kind of elevates it in certain types of ways or creates another way of how I mentioned before, kind of a three-dimensional engagement or play that's not just kind of standardized text or language on the page. And it kind of allows me to just also kind of geek out as a trained librarian. There's a poem that has kind of slave ads, runaway slave ads alongside text. And so recontextualizing that language and those images in this new form in this book kind of again is a way of kind of playing or being in dialogue. Again, we could talk about echoing call and response, like what it means to kind of have an image be a call and a response to be done in the written word or through language in that way.
And it used to be pretty common, I would think, like I've seen old like Charles Dickens novels that have drawings in them, right? I mean, it
Exactly.
used to not be that like you couldn't have drawings in a book of literature, but in my whole life, like a poetry book is just words, small, a lot of white space. How do we arrive at that convention of what poetry books are supposed to look like? And is that starting to change?
Exactly. I know my goal. I'm working on a fiction book. We'll see what takes place. Prose intimidates me so much. It's so many fucking words. But I always loved books or fantasy books that inside the cover, the opening page would have a map. Like when you think about Narnia or like Lord of the Rings or books that kind of had some type of matter that kind of visually situated you or guided you before you entered the realm of the book. And so, yeah, it's always just been a goal to think about having or imbuing or kind of integrating visual matter alongside the words.
The other thing we wanted to talk to you about a little bit is religion and the way you think about religion in the book. Um, we have a particular poem that we were going to ask you about is this, the Nine Circles of Hell, which kind of, is skeptical of, but also engaging with religion. Could you talk about that poem and your own you mentioned already you're thinking about the call and response of the Black church, and talk about that and your own relationship to spirituality in your work.
Definitely. Yeah. So the Nine Circles of Hell come from Dante's Inferno, a canonical poetic text. One that
One that that's a book of poetry that has pictures in it sometimes. I've seen that one.
Yes,
I
yes,
have
yes.
some versions of it with pictures.
Yes. And so I kind of wanted to imagine or be in conversation with this kind of canonical authoritative text in a more playful and almost surreal way. And so it's merging that with Wu-Tang Clan's 36 Chambers. So it's integrating those two texts kind of together, being in conversation. And I was raised and went to Catholic school my entire life until college. So I went through kindergarten through eighth grade at one Catholic school and a Catholic all-girls high school. And so as much as I tried to kind of, I think, depart from Catholicism or kind of rebel against some of its fundamentalist teaching, for some reason in my poetry, I think just the strength and power of the visual imagery, the ritual of experience of Catholicism riddles and echoes throughout my work, even when I'm not consciously trying. And so I think there's something really interesting about being in dialogue or conversation with a higher power, thinking about one's ancestors or lineage in terms of connection and in terms of meaning making across space and time in that way. And so in this one, I'm kind of meditating or thinking about the afterlife. A lot of the book is considering or thinking about resurrection as a possibility or form, what it means to call from the dead or call back from the dead or be reborn in a particular type of way. And so through each of these kind of nine circles that Dante explores, like greed, anger, violence, heresy, I'm kind of reimagining or playfully, hopefully somewhat humorously, kind of imbuing with a lot of kind of pop culture, hip hop reference, music reference. Um, yeah, and just kind of having fun or play, imagining going through the afterlife in terms of Dante's Inferno through a more modernized, Black vernacular lens.
So one of my other favorite poems is A Song by Any Other Name, which is created from a document like identifying bird calls. And I think probably many of our listeners are familiar with blackout poetry or erasure poetry, and this is different, similar, adjacent, but you're writing over the words present on the page to create a poem from new words and what the original text that remains. And I wonder if you could read that poem for us and talk a little bit about how you came to write it in that way. It feels so tactile just like looking at the page. Like you sent us, I was reading this on a screen. And there's also ways in which like when you work in this way, it like resists digital indexing. I don't know if you are like I was like, oh, I want to read this poem again. I'm gonna hunt for the title. And you can't use control find in
Sure,
like and so there's this and then it just like it looks so 3D also.
So should I read it first or do you?
Sure.
Okay. A Song by Any Other Name. Songbirds, singing birds, songsters, listen. You hate to see it. Crows, let me rope you in. Among the two blacks is misery enough. God knows, but no poetry. The starling, pastor, shepherd bird, no 14 nestled in a nest of sonnets. In the sticks, the crown lost its head. In a cloud of sweet rain was a lyric, tuned into the keyhole stars. I've yet to speak a voice as instrument. To do so, I would have to sound off. Unladylike, on account of my seedy character, the early five gets the worm. About 11 times I have been dragged. The blackbird tip drills. The nightingale poet is epic in scope. God said 3 is what I'm afraid of. The song thrush, poet, set free in verse. Lily white, the mountain and the skylark are at each other's throat. Beyond what I can imagine, night is backwash, a swallow. Um, So yeah, for this piece, it demonstrates my deep love for X-Acto knives and glue sticks. And so I highly encourage also like having students engage with actual cutting and gluing in terms of making and creating texture or layers or kind of what it means to kind of paste over or to overlay in a particular type of way, literally, physically, in a tactile way. And so for this piece, the numbers I'm referencing are in numbers related to pictures of particular songbirds. This is taken out of a pictorial dictionary from, I think, the 1960s. And so some of the language of the birds itself referred to like the nightingale bird, for example, as a poet in italicized language. And so I was really interested in kind of the characterization of certain birds as actual poets, the certain language of that birding with the language that I'm also putting over the top. There's a quote also that comes from Thomas Jefferson writing in relationship to Phyllis Wheatley. And Jefferson says, among the blacks is misery enough, God knows, but no poetry. And so Jefferson had this stance or belief that black people were incapable of creative practice at the level of poetry, that it was actually impossible. And that Phyllis Wheatley's work was, he says, below the dignity of criticism. So not actually worthy of critically engaging with or thinking about as an actual act of literary scholarship or making. And so I'm thinking about like what it means to think about or investigate the natural world of bird song, the study and captivation that we have with kind of categorizing or cataloging bird sounds and making in that way, and thinking about that in terms of the legacy of what it means to be considered or given the actual title of poet, and to have one's work be actually like critically engaged with in a meaningful way, that's worthy of respect and dignity as a maker. And so I'm thinking about kind of all of those things woven together through also these pictures or representations of particular songbirds.
Now the fire truck is coming by. I'm just going to give it a minute. It's getting
Whitney, th
closer.
Whitney thinks I made up my Sun Ra tribute band, but I actually think he's making up this whole
You guys can't hear it?
parade of
Probably
noises
can't.
behind
All
him.
right, I'll ask the question. It's probably good now. All right, three, two, one. So over the course of the collection, you have four poems that have Black Bell, in the title. There's one in each section. Could you talk about how you see the arc of all those four poems sort of shaping or joining the collection together, and then read the last one to end our interview for us?
Sure. So yeah, there's four. It's considering kind of each section of the book part of a quartet. So there's four. Each of them has a Black Bell poem. Each of those Black Bell poems is in conversation or meditating on the image of the enslaved woman wearing the contraption of torture. And each of them also has an epigraph that speaks to a particular sound of a bell that should sound, that's tuned to a particular note that is attached to a part of the body. So I actually had four bells made by a Black bell maker in the UK, and I use them when I'm doing performance. So before I read each of these poems, I sound the particular bell. It kind of echoes or ricochets throughout the audience. It's meant to reverberate with a certain part of the body in terms of
Do you
sound.
have one with you now?
Yeah, yeah, I could actually sound
Could you
one if.
play it?
Sure, sure, yeah. Hold 1 second.
All right, so we've taken a short break for Allison to go get the bell, and we're going to get to hear it now, and you can see it if you want to watch the video on YouTube. So let's have it.
So this particular bell is tuned to the note of A. It's meant to connect to the pineal gland. So when sounding, it should be reverberating or echoing or creating a site of healing or communion with that particular part of the body. So I sound the bell after I read the epigraph, and then we'll read the poem.
I'm sorry, wait, I want to ask questions. Is it glass?
Yeah, so the bell,
Oh, I didn't imagine it. I don't know. I've not seen very many glass bells. That's amazing.
yes, the
Okay.
stuff that I wear are created as metal. But for these, they're glass. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay. Black bell. A bell's dome represents the whole universe. The flat bottom represents the earth, and the hollow inside represents the space between the rest of the universe and the earth. When you strike a bell, it sends a message from earth out into the universe. Before reading, strike a bell tuned to A, the note connected to the third eye chakra. Black bell. Were the whistles of men down her back?
Hold on a
Her
second. For some reason, the sound of the bell did not come through at all for us. Like it blew out your speaker or something like that.
It was totally
And then
silent. So wait,
and
Allison,
then when you
here's
started talking, like the sound came
I
back
think
on. So
I have a guess. Allison, do you have noise suppression on your Zoom?
I don't know,
You
maybe.
probably do. So like Zoom automatically suppresses like what it considers to be background noise, which is probably why you
oh,
can't hear.
noise. I'm gonna turn it. I have
Yeah,
noise removal
you
off.
oh no, you probably I mean there's some level of it that's automatic, which is probably why Allison and I couldn't hear the fire truck. But Allison, if you go to your audio settings within Zoom, there's a section that says microphone modes. Mine says noise removal default.
Uh-huh.
You could try choosing original sound for musicians, is another option there.
Okay, is this under
It's the audio. Like, do you see there's like a little upwards arrow to the right of the audio button on Zoom? If you
The little
click that,
microphone.
if you click that, you get a whole range of options.
okay. Is it under audio settings though?
Yes.
Should be it should be up from that where it says microphone modes.
Microphone modes.
Like, so if you click the little up arrow to the right of the microphone, it should open up a whole menu that gives you select a microphone, select a speaker, microphone modes. Do you see all of that?
Microphone modes for some reason though.
Okay, well let's try going to audio settings, which is a choice there.
Got that.
And then if you scroll down there, do you see microphone modes?
I see headset, audio profile, microphone, speaker.
Yeah, at the bottom of the settings, it should say microphone modes. And then, yeah.
Oh, weird.
If it doesn't, it might be that you have an older version of Zoom installed.
Yeah.
That would be my best guess. But I mean, the other thing.
Maybe I've changed mine to original sound for musicians, but there's a notation here that says recommended for studio environments. Original sound is not supported on Zoom phone for both mobile and desktop. I don't know what that means.
Audio profile, Zoom background noise removal.
That's the default. Are there other choices there?
There's original sound for musicians and live performance audio.
Yeah.
Try switching to either one of those and just ring the bell and we'll tell you if you can hear it.
Okay, I'll try the live.
I also just switched it to live performance audio, which is an option.
You sound really scratchy now, Whitney, in a way that you didn't before, for what that's worth.
Okay. We'll play the bell and see what happens.
Okay.
No, we can't hear it.
That's so wild. Okay, let me try original sound for musicians.
Not happening. Here's
Okay,
what we're
so-
gonna do. I know how to fix this. First
Okay.
of all, I'll fix my audio so I'm not jacked up anymore.
Okay.
We're gonna have you do one thing, which is record the bell sound on your phone and email it to us,
Okay.
and that'll work.
Okay.
And I've got to fix what I'm doing with my sound right now,
Yeah, you're scratchy that I can't hear
and I
you.
should be okay now. Okay.
Okay,
Just leave us. Am I
Am I okay now?
I'm getting echo from someone's computer. You
You might need to turn on speakers.
Test.
I wonder.
Oh,
now
I
I can hear it.
Okay, so I just got the original sound for musicians on for bad. Is it creating?
So
an
we'll
echo?
have-
There's an echo happening.
We're
We're
gonna
gonna
mute,
mute,
and then
and then you just play the bell
and
and
read
read
the
the
poem.
poem.
Then
Then we'll have to read you the sound,
and
and we'll
sign
sign
out.
out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So we're
So
gonna
we're gonna be gone.
Black bell. Were the whistles of men down her back? Her clapper hung like a saggy breast, a piece of music. Beneath her skirts was the truth made ugly. unsweet as blackberry thorns. Her laughter's rattle, a mass for secret contempt. She took in as much as she could, a homely or rather timely air about her. Inside the wall of her cheek was a sliver of violence only she could trust. The wind would witness, but wouldn't chime in.
Alison, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing the beautiful sound of that bell with us, your gorgeous collection. Listeners, please check out Alison's book, Black Bell, which you can get at a local independent bookstore near you.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.